Greetings from the dark continent, conscious Caracal Hill, Adams Van Sale, here to shine a light on the goings on down south. I think that's how my intro goes. Welcome back, everyone. I know I've been gone for a while. It's been a month since I uploaded anything or did a stream on this channel, but that's because I was on holiday. It was very nice, and I'll maybe mention it in a future stream. But tonight we're going to be talking about something a bit more serious, less personal, and that's Tucker Carlson and how the organization that I work for and my colleagues tie into the whole storm that's surrounding him right now. And we're going to be looking at what I think is one of the catalysts that led up to this moment, something that destabilized the timeline, something that led up to this point. Now, just again, seeing as I haven't streamed in a month, if my audio is too low or there's some weird background noise or something strange about the audio or the image, the video, let me know in the chat. I haven't tweaked everything 100% when it comes to this, seeing as my microphone and stuff were packed away. So yeah, I would appreciate it. If there's anything like that that shows up, you can just let me know in the comments. So welcome, everyone. I'm glad to see there's already a very large amount of people tuning in, very curious about what we're going to be discussing tonight, I see. So let me just check here if there's anything else I need to get out of the way. No. So then we can start off, and I see here, let's get what's going on here in the chat. 900T16 says, hello, CC, all sounds good. I hope you're well. Quibus Birkus say, broadcast all good. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate that feedback. It really helps. Kermit says, hello. All right, let's jump right into it. Let's get into the video that I wanted to discuss, what I think is a big catalyst. So maybe just some context before I put it on the screen. In 2018, before I started working at AfriForum, my colleague Ernst Roets was already making the world aware, letting the world know about what's going on in South Africa with the help of AfriForum. And him and my other colleague, Kali Krill, went on a liaison tour to the United States in early 2018 to spread information and the truth about farm murders and land expropriation without compensation, the threat of it in South Africa. They met many interesting and many very influential people. And one of these people was Tucker Carlson. And Ernst Roets was very fortunate to appear on Tucker's show all the way back in 2018. Interview that had a massive impact or a reaction all the way back in South Africa. Our commentariat, the South African columnist class, as I call them, had an absolute, or the South African columnist party, whatever you can choose which one of those you prefer. So anyway, the South African columnist party just freaked out, all writing their very poignant opinion pieces about how AfriForum is just the devil incarnate, and how Tucker Carlson is a propagandist or whatever. But anyway, so that interview I actually want to play again, because I think a lot of my audience maybe haven't watched it recently, didn't even watch it, and or don't remember it. Many of you maybe even haven't even seen it. So let's go through it. It's not very long, and I want to go through the points that were made all the way back in 2018, and then I'll get into just the influence of this video and why I made this the topic of tonight's stream. I see Christian say, Goeienaand Rooikat. Goeienaand Christian, lekker om jou hier ook te sien. So let's get this going. As you all know, I'm not the quickest when it comes to screen sharing, so just give me 1 second to get the video on screen. Let's see here. There we go. All right. So here we go. I think the audio should work. If you don't hear anything, just tell me in chat.
Significant story the media have all but ignored. South Africa is a diverse country, but the South African government would like to make it much less diverse. An embattled minority of farmers, mostly Afrikaans speaking, is being targeted in a wave of barbaric and horrifying murders. But instead of protecting them, the government just passed a law allowing it to seize their farms without any compensation, based purely on their ethnicity, and distribute those farms to more favored groups. Thousands have already migrated out of the country, but they've struggled to attract any sympathy abroad for some reason. Ernst Roets is Deputy CEO of AfriForum. It's a South Africa civil rights group. He was just in the United States to meet with a number of government officials. He also took a moment to talk
just
to
the
us.
intro.
Here's part of what he said.
So before we get to Adams's when he starts talking, I don't think I can describe the feeling. I mean, I wasn't working for AfriForum at the time, but we were waiting for this interview. So I already knew Adams at the time. So, and I knew that beforehand that he had done this interview. So we were all just waiting for this interview to drop. And it took a while because there was a bunch of other stories happening in the US, I think, at the time, which were pushing this interview into the future. But then it actually dropped, and it dropped at a ridiculous late time as well, seeing as the time difference between the US and South Africa. But yeah, we stayed up late to watch it in South Africa, and it was really a surreal moment seeing someone I know talking to Tucker Carlson himself. I see the Osprey says, Adams, your audio and video coming through good out here in the American Southwest. Thank you very much. All right, so you are familiar with the man on screen, and I'm familiar with the man that's coming on screen right now. Just 1 second. Gonna click play again.
Ernst Roets joins us now. Mr. Roets, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
So you describe in this book a disorganized, but in some sense intentional campaign to crush a racial minority within your country, and the government seems on board with it. Is that an overstatement?
Well, what the book is about is it's about government complicity in the scourge of farm attacks and farm murders that we've seen in South Africa. So we know in the last 2 decades, there's been, according to government statistics, which we believe we have reason to say that it's maybe downplayed a little. There's been about 2 farm attacks every day and 2 farm murders every week in South Africa. And in the book, I highlighted actually 10 different reasons why we believe the South African government is complicit. And it stretches from reasons including the fact that as these attacks have worsened, for example, in 2007, there was a 25% increase in these attacks. And then the South African government responded saying, we're not going to release any more statistics about this. Then also, which is very concerning, is the hate speech in South Africa. So we have, that's the title of the book as well, Kill the Boer, which is a very popular song, which is still being sung in South Africa. It was sung just the other day. So it's sung at political rallies. And of course, Boer referring to a particular cultural group in South Africa.
Right.
We have songs like Shoot the Boer, which is a different song. So there are a variety of ways in which...
All right. So just before we continue, specifically there, that point that Ernst makes there about the songs that are being sung. Many of my subscribers will be aware of a stream that I did recently this year on the Kill the Boer case, where AfriForum took Julius Malema and the EFF to court over the singing of Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer, and that type of song. And in that court, I mean, here we're talking about it in 2018, and then in 2020, that court case happened. Now, the thing is, in the meantime, now in 2020, we have that clip of Julius Malema under oath saying in court that he may in the future call for the slaughtering of white people, and that he can't pledge to never call for the slaughtering of white people. I mean, adding insult to injury. So as you can see, what Adams is talking about here is not, firstly, well, because we're going to be talking about the smear pieces and stuff and a little bit later in the stream, but so far, no lies detected. I mean, where's the lie? This is the big point so far that Adams has made about the hate speech, the singing of Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer in South Africa, and that is a confirmed phenomenon. That's something that you can find endless videos of on YouTube. You can go watch my stream where I actually have a video clip, that stream called EFF versus AfriForum case, discussion stream analysis. You'll find it on my channel. It was this year. And that in that stream, there's a bunch of evidence of the singing of that song. And as I wanted to say, I almost lost my train of thought. In that stream, I show a clip of when we walked out of the court building, where the EFF supporters actually sing Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer to our faces. And it's on camera, and you can see it on that stream. But you can watch that after this, or you can put it in your plan to watch list. It's on this channel. It actually did very well, 10,000 views. But let's continue.
But I thought that hate speech was now a crime punishable by prison time in South Africa. Are any of the people who say this arrested?
Well,
before we continue, just the definition of hate speech in South Africa, which might confuse some of my American listeners or any international listeners for that matter. So the definition of hate, the constitutional definition of hate speech in South Africa is speech that it has to contain an incitement to violence. So it's speech that directs hate towards a specific group or groups, but it has to, the pivotal or integral aspect of it for it to be qualify as hate speech is has to contain incitement to violence or to cause imminent harm to a group or individuals based on that speech. So, and singing "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer" falls smack dab in the middle of that definition. So, yeah, when they're talking about hate speech here, Tucker, he's talking, when Ernst talks about hate speech, he's talking about the South African definition, which we use in court cases like the "Kill the Boer" court case. But anyway, let's continue.
There's a bill on the table to have hate speech declared a crime punishable by prison time. But if you look at the motivation around this, it's very clear that I think those in government who are pushing this don't regard this as hate speech. As a matter of fact, they've been arguing that it's not hate speech in courts. So they would argue that they have a right to sing about killing farmers. And then they would say it's an expression of freedom of speech.
So now the government has announced that it plans to pursue a policy of taking land away from people on the basis of their skin color. Do you think they'll do that?
Well, that's what was adopted in our parliament in February. A motion was adopted that the property rights clause in the South African constitution has to be changed to allow for expropriation of private property without compensation. So the state president, Cyril Ramaphosa, said that this would turn South Africa into the ultimate paradise and the Garden of Eden.
So just to continue there now, to give you an update in 2022. So then the ANC in 2021 failed to pass the expropriation or the amendment of the constitution in Parliament. So maybe I should just give you the full context there. Let me just get this. So anyway, while I get this, I'm not a multitasker. So anyway, so where we are now is that the ANC has not given up its pursuit of expropriation without compensation. It actually is just taking other avenues, seeing as the parliamentary or the constitutional amendment avenue has failed. That's now the latest on this. Let me just see. I can't find it now, so I have to give you the context from the top of my head. So anyway, the ANC tried to pass this amendment to the constitution in Parliament. They failed. They didn't get the majority that they needed. Those numbers of exactly how much they needed is what I actually wanted to get now, because I don't remember them from memory. But anyway, that's what in the end what happened was that they failed to get that majority. So now and they actually failed because the far left party, the EFF, didn't back them in Parliament for this amendment because of the fact that the ANC weren't radical enough. They weren't because the ANC weren't proposing a full state-owned model of land in South Africa. So that chapter is not done. We're still going to see a lot going on there in the future. But anyway, that's what happened in regards to the expropriation without compensation. ANC is going a lot of other routes as well, something that there will be a video on AfriForum's YouTube about it coming out this week about the ANC's new plot to meddle with private property rights and private property in South Africa. So let's continue there.
And Deputy President David Mabuza even went further, saying that basically threatening white farmers that if they do not voluntarily hand over their land to black people, then there would be a violent takeover. So the situation is very dire in South Africa. But the good news is that there's still a process that has to be followed. And that's why we are in the United States.
What I find so striking is the response from everyone else around the world is almost never covered in the American media. There's a sense that the people being murdered deserve it because of what their ancestors did. And the international community is similarly silent. Have you met with any?
Before we continue, I see here in chat, Kermit says that's why they now want land donations. That's actually one of their new ways of that they are going about trying to accumulate more land that they don't distribute. They just keep it for themselves or distribute it to the politically connected. But that's a story for another day. I'll get into that on another stream. Or you can just watch the video that's going to be on AfriForum's YouTube channel on that new plot by the ANC. But anyway, let's continue here.
Government officials here in Washington about what's happening in your country?
Well, that's why we are here. We are about to meet with some government officials, and it's very unfortunate, the situation that you've just mentioned. So there's, especially in South Africa, there's a hierarchy of recognition. So some people, when they are the victims, it's all over the news and you hear about it frequently, and other people, as especially, I think, especially farmers in South Africa, white farmers in particular, when they would be tortured to death and it would receive very little news coverage. And that's unfortunately the situation abroad as well, which is why we are very grateful to be having this.
So a government official in Australia...
Right. So what Adam said there is very true. There's still some media outlets internationally that really either turn a cold shoulder to the issue of farm murders and farm attacks and downplay and say it's not that serious, or actually just blatantly spread misinformation and verbatim South African government propaganda. That's the most shocking. I understand that if you don't really care to look into the issue because of ideological reasons, you might be completely ignorant of how bad it is. I understand that. But then that's ignorance. Then there's malice. Then there's actual malice, where a lot of these journalists just parrot South African government propaganda and they parrot misinformation. They parrot each other. So one guy will make a completely baseless claim about, farm murders aren't that bad. And then another guy will just cite him, and another journalist will cite him. And when you go back all the way down the rabbit hole, it just ends up at a nothing. It just ends up at a baseless claim. So anyway, that's a very good point there from Ernst Roets, and we're going to get into that when we get to the New York Times piece as well, because that's another example of a downplaying of the issue. It's actually quite vile. So yeah, let's continue. Let's get this interview done, and then we can get into the rest of the stream.
Said publicly, maybe we ought to allow asylum to people being persecuted for their skin color in your country. And he was basically laughed at and then attacked by your government for saying that.
Yes, he was attacked, and they then said that he shouldn't say that because AfriForum was providing them with false information, while the information that we are quoting is government statistics. So that is the situation. Just
to stop there, that's a very good point from Ernst. The statistics that we cite when we do at AfriForum, when we do these types of layers and tours, are often government statistics when it comes to land expropriation or statistics of the failure of all these land reform projects of the government. It's their own statistics. We just collect it and present it. That's the funny thing. And with farm murders as well, we use a lot of South African police statistics for those, and it's all cited. It's not like we just pull it out of thin air. It's all cited. You can find everywhere where our sources are coming from. You can find where the information is coming from. Meanwhile, when you get these hit pieces and smear pieces about Tucker Carlson or about AfriForum, it's all just this hearsay. It's all just this, this commentator called AfriForum a radical organization, or this columnist called AfriForum white nationalist, or this opinion writer said that AfriForum is racist. They always that's what they use as their source. Well, in AfriForum, in our reports, when it comes to land ownership, when it comes to expropriation, when it comes to farm murders, when it comes to farm attacks, all those statistics, you can find where they come from. They're all cited. Just go look at an AfriForum report if you really are skeptical. I mean, there might be some of my listeners that are listening or people that are listening that think that AfriForum spreads misinformation. Go look at it. Sometime just go look at an AfriForum report, or go look at Ernst Roets's book, Kill the Boer. Go look at the amount of citations. Go look at the amount of sourcing that's done, and it's open, transparent. It's there. That's the funniest thing, is that all our opponents, when they smear and attack us, they use just hearsay and, or this guy said and this guy said, and there's a perception and there's a feeling or a vibe That's what they cite. But in AfriForum's documents, we cite actual statistics that you can find where they're coming from, and you find it from where it's all coming from. But anyway, let's get back to the interview.
Speaks out against this. We, just for being in the United States, we've been accused of treason. We've had people threatening us, saying they'll wait for us at the airport when we come back and they'll attack us and so forth. We had the state president today in Parliament calling on us to go back to South Africa. So whenever you speak out against this, there's a very serious backlash.
This is not what Nelson Mandela wanted.
No.
So what Ernst was telling there is also a very important point. So when it comes to these types of liaison tours or information tours that AfriForum does, what happens is when we initially try to get a response from government, we say there's this issue that we really want you to pay attention to. We want it prioritized. We want more resources poured into to helping alleviate this issue. The government is silent. We write a letter, we send reports, we don't really get a reply. The moment someone from AfriForum steps foot on foreign soil in America or in Europe, then the government is like, oh no, come back to South Africa. Let's have a chat. Why are you going overseas? We can sort this out amongst ourselves here in South Africa. Come, we want to talk. But before that, those tours, there's nothing of that. Before that, we get a cold shoulder. We get no response. That's why these types of tours are important. That's why Ernst Roets going overseas to talk to Tucker Carlson is important. That's why the AfriForum invests so much time and effort into these tours, because the South African government is clearly not interested in addressing the issue of farm murders and farm attacks. It's often spreading misinformation and propaganda about this issue that the government does, which is really, really concerning and shocking. It's something that drives us to do these types of campaigns, is that if we don't do it, who will? And that's why we go talk to people like Tucker Carlson, because he gives us the platform and he gives us a fair interview and he gives us a fair chance to state our case. We don't get that from some other journalists when they represent AfriForum. They misrepresent AfriForum, and you'll see that in the New York Times piece. But anyway, let's continue. The interview is almost done.
It's the exact opposite than what he wanted. He publicly spoke about a free country in which people were not judged by the color of their skin, and he even wanted farm attacks to be a priority crime. He said that when he was president, and when his presidency was over, they deprioritized it.
So you just watched something like this happen in a neighboring country, Zimbabwe, which went from being one of the richest in Africa to the poorest in the world because of farm attacks and because of the theft of private property. Is the ANC, the ruling party in South Africa, aware of that lesson?
Yes, they are aware of that lesson. But the thing is, they actually idealize figures like Robert Mugabe. Cyril Ramaphosa has described Robert Mugabe as a hero. ANC presidents have described Robert Mugabe as a hero. They see him as an influence. They see him as an inspiration. They don't see anything bad or evil about him. That's the thing. That's the problem. It's not that the ANC is ignorant of what happened in Zimbabwe. They just think that, it wasn't done properly, or there's some things that could have been tweaked to make it better. It's the sanctions, those dastardly sanctions. You know, those sanctions that only targeted ZANU-PF politicians and not the Zimbabwean economy. Those sanctions, that destroyed the Zimbabwean economy. Oh no, it was a drought that destroyed the Zimbabwean economy. You know, that drought that ended, and then the decline just didn't stop. Then they got record rainfall and it didn't do anything. That drought, it's always these absolutely just ridiculous excuses. And I should know. I did my master's degree on the absolute implosion of Zimbabwe. So I know I can see through the propaganda, and I've got all the receipts. But anyway, like I said, that's a story for another day. I actually did a stream on it. If you go check the stream, Protecting Property Rights and Redistributive Populism, that stream of mine, I discuss it in full, my master's thesis, but you can also do that on your own time. So we're almost done here.
Well, they are, but you know that saying, real communism has never been tried. That's what they keep saying. So it failed in Zimbabwe, it failed in Cuba, it failed in Venezuela, it failed in Russia, it failed in China, and all of those countries. And they're basically saying that we're going to try the same thing, but this time it's going to work.
So last question. It's considered basically immoral in the United States to talk to you or to hear stories like this for reasons that nobody ever bothers really to explain, but it's just understood. If you could speak to our media, the people who are dismissing your claims as false, what would you say?
Well, I think there are three things. Firstly, everything we say is fact-based. It's based on research. But in terms of what we hope to achieve and what people can do, people who want to invest in South Africa, we want them to call on the South African government to say, listen, you are calling on us to invest in your country, but you want to expropriate those investments.
Yeah, it's
number two, we are speaking with the US government and asking them to put pressure on the South African government, which could be done in a variety of ways. And number three, members of the public and members of the media, the best thing that you can do to help us is to talk about this, to talk about it on public platforms, and in that way, to continue to put pressure on the South African government not to continue with this policy.
cool. All right, that's the end. Stop sharing. Vlei daai storie is uit. All right, let's see here. Cool. Yeah, so that's the interview, and it just set off a bomb. I see Sideline Opinion says Mugabe was knighted by the British. Fact check, true. Also, Margaret Thatcher, classical liberal hero, some hero to some conservatives as well. Not so much for me after I read The Great Betrayal. But yeah, she described Robert Mugabe as someone who is, in her words, or in her mind, or in her words rather, unable to commit corruption. Incapable of corruption. That's the word. That's how she described him. And they had regular tea and regular conversations, and they were dick chummies. They were good mates. So yeah, that's also a little bit of lore there. Bolero 393 gives a super sticker for $5. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So why did I play a 2018 interview in 2022 and dedicate an entire stream to it, and title that stream The Interview That Shook the USA and South Africa? I just saw here, Wesley says he wasn't corrupt, it was the demon inside him. Anyway, so now what we're seeing here, okay, why did I choose that interview? Because in 2022, we still get hit pieces like that one that appeared in the New York Times recently about Tucker Carlson, the one that he posted that picture of him holding the New York Times newspaper and just laughing at the story. That's how you should respond to this type of vile behavior. That's how you should respond to the attack dogs of the regime. But anyway, so this interview of 2018 of my colleague Ernst Roets on Tucker Carlson is extensively referenced in that hit piece, that New York Times hit piece. And that interview, you can't prove it conclusively, but I think you can, with a lot of confidence, say that it played a role in Donald Trump's tweet about farm murders in South Africa that followed just a little bit later in that year in 2018. Which also set off a dynamite explosion in the United States political discourse and in South Africa, people losing their minds. So yeah, and I think that interview that Ernst Roets did is therefore still reverberating into 2020, all the way back from 2018. It's still causing chest pains in South Africa and in the United States. So what Ernst Roets was talking about there about government complicity is actually a very important point, because seeing let me just put another clip on here I'm going to put this wait, it's a Chrome tab, here we go, share. So I'm gonna put this very simply. Oh look, Cyril Ramaphosa is trending in South Africa, and I'm going to play a Cyril Ramaphosa clip. So this is the South African government's view of farm murders. This is what the South African government, the president of South Africa, thinks about farm murders. Listen closely. Listen carefully.
We were seated together at the lunch table, so we never really got time to talk about the tweet. It was just an opportunity to shake hands, to say how are you and all that. But on the tweet itself, he was clearly misinformed. And whoever gave him that information was completely wrong. There are no killings of farmers or white farmers in South Africa. There's no land grab in South Africa. we are involved in a process of discussing land reform. Land was the original sin.
Land was the original sin. Well, there you have it. That's the current president of South Africa in 2018, the same year. That's his view on farm murders. Let me quote him. There are no murdering of farmers or white farmers in South Africa. Just let that sink in for a moment. Just think, you don't even have to think about it too hard to realize how messed up it is, to realize how vile it is, that level of denialism. Not even the regular route of, oh, it's not that bad. Just, it's not happening. It's never in my life, never have I heard about it. That's the president of South Africa. And now you want to tell me that the South African government cares about its farmers in South Africa. That's that's some sobering stuff. That's a red pill. So anyway, on the issue of farmers. So just to add the what was I going to say now? Oh yeah, so that's in the same year. 2018 was a roller coaster, but anyway, you see how the influence of this interview. So that interview has also, I think, influenced that clip where Cyril Ramaphosa is asked about farm murders and about what's happening in South Africa. Oh, also no land grabs, apparently, according to the president, that are happening. That's a that's a bold claim. Seeing as, let me just give you a little stat there about land grabs in South Africa. So, official data. Let's see. Land invasions have become a daily reality in South Africa, with more than 1,000 such invasions occurring in the Western Cape province alone in less than a year. Google land grab South Africa. Google land invasion South Africa. Google farm invasion South Africa. You'll see how blatant these lies are. And this is the president of the country. So anyway, now what happened in 2022 that made me do this stream? Well, the New York Times graced us with a hit piece on Tucker Carlson, but AfriForum is also mentioned, which actually shows the how big a player AfriForum has become on the global stage, where we get a very large portion of real estate, in the free real estate, in the minds of the reporters at the New York Times, and also on in their little hit piece. So let's get that on the screen, if you will just give me a second of patience. Let's see. Boom. All right. Can you guys see? Yes, I'm sure you can, because I'm seeing it on screen. All right. So read along with me. Then the Murdoch empire stepped in the winter of 2018. Reporters for a Murdoch-owned Australian tabloid, the Daily Telegraph, contacted AfriForum, the organization that I work for, me and Ernst Roets, a self-styled civil rights group for South Africa's Afrikaner white minority. Self-styled. Go look at what we do. Go to our website and go to some of our media, our press statements. Google AfriForum court case victories, and you'll see it's all civil rights cases. It's all everything. We're a textbook civil rights organization, self-styled civil rights group. Give me a break. But anyway, it just shows the low level of research that was done here. Or it shows two things. Either it's one of two. Either very superficial level of research or malice. Now, I can't prove which one it is, but it is either one of those two. Either he knows we're a civil rights group and he just wants to call us self-styled, or he doesn't know, which is very hard not to know if you just do a little bit of research. I mean, you don't have to do a lot. Anyway, let's continue. For months, with little success, the group has been circulating widely contested studies claiming to show the white farmers faced a disproportionate. I'm putting on that voice because it just for because that's how I think the writer of this, how New York Times journalists talk, has been circulating widely contested studies claiming to show that white farmers faced a disproportionate risk of murder and brutalization. After touring white-owned farms in South Africa, the Telegraph team returned with a package of columns and new articles asserting that being a South African farmer was now the world's most dangerous job. It is one of the world's dangerous jobs. If you look at statistics, it is a more dangerous job than being a policeman in regards to the amount of murders per 100,000. And you can go check that out for yourself. Anyway, where was I? From there, the story would be picked up by the Fox-inspired nighttime hosts on Sky News. Within days, Australia's Home Affairs Minister floated the idea of fast track. Okay, that's a different story. So the idea went nowhere, but the story soon jumped around the world. I just find it funny when they say for months, with little success, the group AfriForum had been circulating the widely contested studies. Widely contested. It's contested by opinion piece writers. It's not contested by people that actually look into the stats. It's contested by radio host philosophers. It's contested by radio DJs. That's the level of opposition. I mean, technically, yes, it's contested, but look at the characters that are contesting it. Anyway, let's get to the next paragraph. In 2018 meeting of Fox News executives, according to two people with knowledge of the discussions, Mr. Lau proposed covering farm murders for American audiences, echoing the fevered framing of his Australian colleagues, a country descending into chaos, an impoverished black majority scheming to kill white farmers and steal their land. Mr. Carlson, it turned out, was also pursuing the story. He had briefly mentioned farm murders in a segment that March, and 2 months later, when AfriForum officials made a lobbying trip to Washington, an ally put them in touch with him. Quote, and this is from, okay, I'm going to point this out because it actually speaks volumes. He couldn't even bother spelling Ernst's name right. The New York Times, I mean, Ernst, he talked with Ernst over the phone. Ernst, you can find him on Twitter. You can find his Wikipedia page. You could just type in his name in Google. This guy couldn't even bother spelling his name correctly. There's no second E. I should know. I have the same name. But that's the level of research. That's the quality that tells you everything you need to know about the quality of this research. Can't even. Anyway, the quote from Ernst Roets. Ernst. My understanding was he was interested in the topic already, and someone had gotten to know over time, recommended he speak with us, said Ernst Roets, AfriForum's deputy chief executive, who inclined to identify the intermediary. AfriForum formally rejects the far-right idea of white genocide, but when he interviewed Mr. Roets on his show that May, Mr. Carlson bulldozed through the group's careful caveats and describing in some sense an intentional campaign supported by the government to crush the racial minority within your country. When the president of your country says there are no murdering of farmers or white farmers in South Africa, when the government does absolutely nothing to address the issue or to prioritize the issue, I think it's safe to say that there's complicity in the issue, in that. If you walk down the street and you have, let's say, you walk down the street and you see a crime, someone being mugged or someone being attacked or someone being stabbed, and you just turn your head away and you do nothing, if you have the means to save them or help them, and you don't do anything, you're complicit. And then you go down the street and when someone asks you, someone just got murdered there, why didn't you help them? It's like, well, nobody got murdered there. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. That's complicity. Further quote. In an interview with the New York Times, Mr. Roets acknowledged that Tucker Carlson had exaggerated. Talked to Ernst Roets this morning. He says he never said this. When this is what he said. So Ernst said, it's not my job. When he talked about the interviewer asked him about, don't you think that Tucker Carlson exaggerated his questions or didn't frame them correctly? Ernst answered, it's not my job as a spokesperson to tell a journalist how he should frame a question. It would be a bad spokesperson to use what little time I have to say, well, that's let's frame that question a little differently. Absolutely correct. You're going on one of the most watched cable shows in the United States. You have 5 minutes to get your story, your stats, your information out there. Do you really expect him now to talk for 2 minutes or 3 minutes about, well, maybe you should phrase that question like this. Maybe you shouldn't use that word. No, it's It's an impossible standard. Anyway, so, but yeah, he never said that Tucker Carlson exaggerated. He just said he couldn't, it's not his place to tell the interviewer, I think you should frame that question differently when he has a 5-minute slot. Anyway, but yeah, that's small change. Is this important? Yeah, this is the last bit. So what we have here is Mr. Carlson's coverage sparked a rare high-level dispute inside the net. I don't think this is it's not important. I don't really care about the gossip about what's going on inside Fox News. Okay. Okay, maybe I should read it because actually it's another lie. During a subsequent meeting of Fox's senior executives, Brian Jones, the president of Fox Business Network and the highest ranking, look how they spell black with a capital letter, but white, it doesn't have a capital letter. It's clown world. It's just clown journalism. Why do you think journalists aren't taken seriously? You write black with a capital letter, but you don't capitalize white. None of the two should be capitalized, you child. Anyway, and English is my second language, and I have to correct these people. Anyway, yeah, but I mean, ideology is a brainworm. Anyway, he explained that almost everything Mr. Carlson was saying on the air was wrong. Legislators in South Africa, where whites still own the majority of private farmland, had begun debating on constitutional amendment to allow uncompensated land seizures, but no such measure had been passed. Though intended to reverse apartheid era land dispossession, reverse apartheid era land dispossession, there's already a restitution process. The only thing is the government doesn't distribute any of the most of the land. They hoard it all, or they give it to their friends and they give it to the politically connected. Only 6.3% of the land that they've accumulated, they've redistributed. That's official government statistic. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. So let's see here. Where was I? Nor had the government backed a campaign of ethnic violence and murder. Nobody said they backed a campaign of ethnic violence and murder. Maybe I didn't hear it. I didn't hear that assertion or that claim, especially not from Ernst. He didn't even imply it, that the government is backing. Like, I think we have a little bit of a misunderstanding here in regards to what complicity means. It can mean a myriad of things. Ernst explains it in the interview. You can watch it again. Anyway, nor had the government back. Wait, already had that. Mr. Jones told his fellow executives that Mr. Carlson's coverage had been ripped from far right sites, including the neo-Nazi Daily Stormer, according to a person with knowledge of the discussions. Are you mental? Are you absolutely mental? So if a website like the Daily Stormer says the sky is blue, does that destroy the fact? Does it just make that fact automatically false? Did Tucker Carlson have an interview of Andrew Anglin, or did he have an interview with Ernst Roets? I mean, this is just, it's so disingenuous. It's so disingenuous, this reporting. It's actually shocking. But anyway, it gives me a headache. But anyway, yeah, that's let's continue. Whatever. It's just a little bit of law there. And I don't think this is too important. That's pretty much what I wanted to discuss. Stop sharing. Cool. Boom. Oh, so many of you still sticking around. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I haven't been able to look at the chat this whole time, though. So before I continue, just give the chat a little bit of love. Unfortunately, I can't get to all of you because I'm doing a lot of reading in this stream tonight. Oh, yeah, this was the funniest. I think it was Cernovich that tweeted out, the New York Times doesn't read their own articles, and he posted all these screenshots of the New York Times reporting on farm murders years ago. And then Bolero 393 says New York Times writers know their paper is a rag. They don't read their old articles contradicting their lies before they publish. I mean, that's the state of the New York Times then. But like I said, I made a tweet earlier this week. A fox's tail is called a brush, a rabbit's tail is called a scut, a boar's tail is called a reef, and a New York Times tail is called a lie. All right. Just checking here at the chat. Be Smart says hearts for the chat. Well, thank you. The chat does deserve it. Steve says important to monitor the situation in South Africa because it is a portentous. I don't know what that means, but English is my second language, so I'm not disputing that it's a word of other countries. Right. So let's continue here. Oh yeah. So I wanted to give you some stats because seeing as the that piece just says, oh, land grabs aren't happening and murdering of white farmers isn't happening. Here's some stats for you. So there are currently more than, and racial discrimination in South Africa isn't that bad. Is another thing that you see in a lot of these in these opinion pieces. They're not really reporting. Let me give you some examples of institutional racism, some structural institutional racism. There are currently more than 80 laws in South Africa which entrenches racial categorization and discrimination against minorities. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, the South African government announced that government support and relief for struggling businesses will give preferential treatment to Black-owned businesses and even reject white-owned businesses if they didn't have enough Black employees or ownership. A policy that was even condoned by the Pretoria High Court. Official data by the South African Police Service indicates that over a period of 2 decades, roughly 2 farm attacks have been reported every day, and roughly 2 farm murders have been reported every week in South Africa. That's official police statistics. And then that fact I gave earlier, land invasions have also become a daily reality in South Africa, with more than 1,000 such invasions occurring in the Western Cape province alone in less than a year. That's the reality of what's happening in South Africa. And then you still have these journalists that lie about it or just are completely ignorant, but willingly ignorant. I mean, the information is out there. We can't write more reports on this phenomenon. Well, we still do, but I mean, it just doesn't penetrate. All right. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with. But anyway, that's also why these types of liaison tours that AfriForum does are so important, because we spread that truth, we spread that information, we inform people about what's going on, and we get support and gain allies like Tucker Carlson, which is a major ally now, to help us in this fight. And that's why that's why AfriForum keeps doing it. So yeah, that's the interview that shook the USA and South Africa, and that's what led up to this, played a large role in this opinion, this hit piece coming out. Oh, that's a good point. Kerma GTT says, Ernst, keep in mind Americans think minorities are Black or brown. Don't confuse them. Yeah, but that's true. When I mention minorities on my own channel, sometimes people are a bit confused. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, South Africa isn't on that same train as the United States when it comes to demographics. But anyway, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I wanted to cover. It's an interview that I remember staying up very late to watch, and it was it's a memorable moment when it finally dropped. I remember being so excited just to see it and share it. And yeah, and then since then, Ernst has talked to Tucker Carlson again. He's been on his show again, and he's also been on his podcast. What's it called? Tucker Carlson. Is it Tucker Carlson Today? I think. Where he talked in detail, like an hour's detail, on what's going on in South Africa. So that's also been happening in the meantime, and yeah, it's been a major success, and it's Tucker is a very good friend of AfriForum. But anyway, yeah, guys, that's what I wanted to cover. And before we say goodbye, and before I have my final words, I also just want to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Bitvice, which is the only place in South Africa that sells Bitcoin directly to your self-custody, meaning that unlike a traditional crypto exchange, you don't have to trust anyone to hold your Bitcoin for you. This removes the largest risk associated with Bitcoin. And then they also have a podcast called By the Horns, which you can find on YouTube and Apple and Google Podcasts and Spotify, where they talk about crypto and Bitcoin. If that interests you, if that's something that you find interesting, go check it out. There's a lot of South African angles to it too, which is very interesting. I tune in also to that podcast, and I know the guys behind it, so it's I will gladly promote their podcast and their website here. So the Bitvice team has also been hard at work making some changes to their product over the past few months. You may remember that their minimum purchase size was 20,000 Rand, but that has been reduced to 5,000 Rand recently. You can now buy Bitcoin directly to your hardware wallet in a matter of seconds. So there's a link in the description. Go check it out. If you are interested in Bitcoin, curious about it, they'll help you out. They'll give you information that you need. You can just ask them questions. Even you don't even have to use their product. You can just, if you just want to have information, you can contact them. But anyway, so this is where I say goodbye. Thank you everyone for tuning in after this month, this hiatus where I haven't been uploading or doing streams. If you're new to this channel, you can subscribe. You can also leave a like. That helps out the show quite a bit. If you are watching and it's no longer live, you can also leave a comment in the comment section. I read them all. Respond to as many as possible, and yeah, I always enjoy getting your feedback. I enjoyed all of your feedback tonight. Not so much interaction between me and the chat tonight as usually, but that's because I was mostly reading and watching interviews for this stream, which made sure that the chat wasn't on the screen, so I couldn't pay attention to it constantly. So let's just see here. 900T16 says, thanks, CC, take care. The Freighter Watches says, Conscious Caracal, thanks for the stream, Adams. Glad you're back. I hope you had a nice break and life is good. No, I had a very nice break. Thank you. Busy week ahead. Dagbreker says, dankie Ernst, lekker aand verder. Dankie Dagbreker dat jy ingeskakel het. Ek waardeer dit regtig baie. B-Smart says, rustige aand almal. Rustige aand vir jou ook, B-Smart. So cheers, guys. Have a good one. If you're new to this channel, subscribe if you like these types of analyses and streams. And I'll check you again next time. I hope you have an excellent week and then also an excellent weekend. And I'll check you again next week when I do my next stream. Can't tell you who the guest is going to be yet. Got to figure it out. But you can follow me on my Telegram channel, link in the description, to figure out who my next, or to be the first to hear who my next guest is. And you can follow me on social media as well. So cheers, guys. Have a good one and God bless.